You can check the new schedule, Mary, Chad said, loud enough for everyone in the break room to hear. My stomach dropped as I stared at the paper pinned to the corkboard. My 40 hours, slashed to 12. His smirk cut deeper than his words. Maybe this will remind you how replaceable you are. Laughter rippled through the room. Snickers from people I'd trained. The smell of burnt coffee made my nausea worse. I swallowed hard, blinking back tears that threatened to spill. I've worked here for 4 years. 4 years of opening shifts, of covering emergencies, of staying late without complaint. And this was my reward, public humiliation over a schedule that would barely cover my rent. Chad folded his arms, waiting for me to respond. To beg, maybe. To apologize for whatever imaginary sin I'd committed. Instead, I nodded slowly. Okay. His eyebrows lifted slightly. He'd expected more of a reaction. I turned and walked out of that break room with my head high, even though my hands were shaking. Even though my chest felt like it was caving in. He thought he was teaching me a lesson. He was right. I learned something that day, something he'd regret. I learned never to let anyone have that power over me again. My name is Mary Collins. I'm 27 years old, and West End Willow retail had been my entire adult life since college. I started as a cashier during my senior year, just trying to pay off student loans. After graduation, I stayed. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was steady. The old manager, Patricia, had been kind and fair. She promoted me to assistant supervisor within 2 years. I knew every corner of that store. I could reorganize inventory in my sleep. I trained new hires, handled difficult customers, and covered shifts when people called in sick. I wasn't perfect, but I showed up. I cared. Then Patricia retired 6 months ago. Corporate sent Chad Morrison to replace her. He was 32, fresh from some management training program, and full of ideas about maximizing efficiency and establishing authority. From day one, he made it clear that loyalty meant nothing to him. Only obedience did. The atmosphere changed overnight. What used to feel like teamwork turned into a battlefield where everyone watched their backs. People stopped laughing. They stopped helping each other. And Chad? He thrived on the fear. I told myself to be patient, to give him time to adjust. Maybe he was just nervous, trying to prove himself. I was wrong. It started small. So small I almost missed it. A public correction here. A forgotten email there. He'd give me instructions, then claim I'd misunderstood him. Once, he asked me to organize a new display by the front entrance. I spent 3 hours making it perfect, color-coordinated, eye-catching, exactly what he'd described. The next morning, he tore it apart in front of the morning crew. "This isn't what I asked for," he said coldly. "Did you even listen to me yesterday?" I replayed our conversation in my head. I'd followed his instructions exactly. But he just shook his head. "Do it again. And this time, pay attention." My coworker Jessica shot me a sympathetic look, but no one said anything. No one dared. I redid the display. It looked almost identical to the first one. Chad walked by an hour later and nodded. "Much better. See what happens when you actually try?" That's when I understood. This wasn't about the display. It was about control. He wanted me to doubt myself. To second-guess every decision. To feel small. And for a while, it worked. The public humiliations became his favorite tactic. He waited until the store was packed, Saturday afternoons, holiday rushes, to call me out. One busy weekend, he pulled me aside near the register where a long line of customers waited. "Mary, did you forget to process the markdown report yesterday?" His voice carried across the store. My face flushed. "You never asked me to. So now you're saying I didn't do my job?" He crossed his arms. Interesting defense. Customers turned to stare. An older woman frowned at me like I'd personally disappointed her. My throat tightened. I'm sorry. I'll do it right now. He sighed dramatically. You can take an early lunch. If we can afford to pay you for it. More laughter from the team. Nervous laughter, the kind that comes from relief that someone else is the target. I grabbed my purse and walked to my car on shaking legs. I sat there for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing through the shame. This job wasn't worth my dignity. But I needed it. I had rent. Bills. Student loans that haunted me every month. I was trapped. Or at least, that's what I believed. That night, I sat in my car for an hour after clocking out. The parking lot emptied around me. Street lights flickered on. I watched people drive away to their normal lives while mine felt like it was crumbling. I'd been loyal. Patient. Professional. And it didn't matter. Chad didn't care about hard work or dedication. He cared about power. About keeping people beneath him so he could feel important. Tears finally came. Hot, angry tears that I'd been holding back for weeks. I cried until my eyes burned and my chest ached. Then, something shifted inside me. A quiet, cold clarity. If he wanted to play games, fine. But I wouldn't play by his rules anymore. I wouldn't quit. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of watching me run away defeated. Instead, I'd do something he'd never expect. I'd rise. I wiped my face, started the engine, and drove home with a new kind of determination settling in my bones. If Chad thought he was teaching me a lesson, he was right. But the lesson wasn't about staying small. It was about becoming powerful enough that no one could ever cut my hours, or my worth, again. I didn't quit. I didn't snap. I didn't give him any reason to fire me. Instead, I smiled. I thanked him for his feedback. I became the model employee he thought he'd broken. But behind that smile, I was watching. Every time he arrived late and adjusted the time clock. Every personal expense he charged to the store account, lunches, gas, even a new watch he claimed was a uniform necessity. Every labor code violation. Every safety shortcut. Every time he scheduled minors past legal hours. I documented it all. I kept a small notebook in my locker. Dates, times, witnesses. I took photos of schedules. I saved emails. Quietly. Patiently. Chad never noticed. He was too busy enjoying his power to see that I'd stopped being afraid of him. My coworker Jessica caught me taking a photo of an expense report once. "What are you doing?" she whispered. I looked at her. "Insurance." She didn't ask again. But I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. Like maybe someone was finally going to stand up to him. I wasn't ready yet. But I would be. While Chad bragged about his unshakable position, I was doing something he'd never imagined. I enrolled in night classes at the community college. Business Management Certificate Program. 12 weeks, 2 nights a week. No one at work knew. I kept my West and Willow uniform in my car and changed in the college parking lot between my shift and class. The classes were hard. Not because of the material, but because I was exhausted. I'd work from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., drive across town, sit through 3 hours of lectures on organizational leadership and financial management, then drive home and collapse into bed. My body ached. My brain felt fried. Some nights I survived on coffee and pure stubbornness. But for the first time in months, that exhaustion felt worth it. I wasn't just surviving Chad's cruelty anymore. I was building an escape route. My instructor, Professor Daniels, pulled me aside after class one evening. "You're one of my strongest students, Mary. Have you thought about management positions?" I almost laughed. "I'm currently being managed by someone who shouldn't be." She smiled knowingly. "Then maybe it's time you became the one doing the managing." Her words stayed with me all week. 3 months into my classes, rumors started spreading at work. The corporation was restructuring. District-level positions were opening. They wanted to promote from within. Everyone buzzed with speculation during breaks. Chad laughed it off in his usual condescending way. "Corporate will never promote anyone from this branch," he announced to the team. "You all know how these things work. They'll bring in someone from outside." People nodded, accepting his words as fact. I just nodded along, pretending to agree. But that night, I polished my resume. I listed every responsibility I'd taken on at West and Willow. Every emergency I'd handled. Every system I'd improved. I highlighted my management certificate, still in progress, but close to completion. Then I did something bold. I reached out to Tom Riley, the regional director who'd visited our store twice during Patricia's time. He'd complimented my customer service once. I sent him a carefully worded email. Professional. Not complaining about Chad, but expressing interest in growth opportunities within the company. He responded within 2 days. "Let's schedule a call." My heart hammered as I read those words. This was real. This was happening. Chad had no idea that his replaceable employee was about to become unreplaceable. 3 weeks later, Chad's arrogance reached new heights. He called me into his office on a Friday afternoon. I thought maybe he'd finally noticed my improved performance. Instead, he slid a new schedule across his desk. "I'm giving your weekend shifts to Brittany," he said casually. "She's got a better attitude." Brittany was his favorite. 20 years old, fresh out of high school, always laughing at his jokes. "But I've worked weekends for 3 years," I said carefully. "I need those hours." He shrugged. "Then maybe you should smile more. People like working with happy employees." My jaw tightened. "This isn't about my smile. This is about you playing favorites." His expression darkened. "Careful, Mary. You're already on thin ice." I stood up slowly. "Understood." I walked out before he could see my hands shaking. That night, I went home and cried again. Not because of the hours, though losing them hurt. I cried because I'd finally realized something. I'd outgrown this place. I'd outgrown being small. And I was done waiting for permission to leave. The next morning, I applied for the district management internship. The application process was intense. I submitted my resume, a cover letter, and 3 professional references. Then came the questionnaire, 20 questions about leadership philosophy, conflict resolution, and company values. I spent hours crafting each answer. When I finally hit submit, my finger hovered over the button for a full minute. This was it. The moment everything could change. I clicked. 3 days later, I got the email. "Congratulations. We'd like to schedule your interview." I read it 10 times. My hands shook. My heart raced. I scheduled the interview for my day off, 2 weeks away. That gave me time to prepare, and time to keep my secret. I told no one. Not Jessica. Not my roommate. Not my parents. This was mine. Chad strutted around the store that week, lecturing us about commitment and loyalty. He had no idea that his least favorite employee was about to walk through a door he didn't even know existed. For the first time in 6 months, I felt powerful. Not because I was tearing him down. But because I was building myself up. And he couldn't stop me. The interview was held at corporate headquarters downtown. A sleek glass building that made West and Willow look like a garage sale. I wore my best blazer and rehearsed answers in the elevator. The panel consisted of 3 people. Tom Riley, a senior HR manager named Diane, and another district manager I didn't recognize. Tom smiled when I entered. "Mary. Good to see you again." That small acknowledgement calmed my nerves. Diane asked most of the questions. Standard stuff at first: why did I want the position, what was my management style? Then she asked the hard one. "Tell us about a time you faced conflict with a supervisor." How did you handle it? I could have lied. Could have given some sanitized corporate answer. Instead, I told the truth. Without naming Chad. I worked under someone who used fear instead of respect. He cut my hours to punish me for things I didn't do. He humiliated me in front of customers and coworkers. Diane's expression didn't change, but I saw Tom's jaw tighten. And how did you respond? She asked. I didn't retaliate. I focused on becoming better. I enrolled in management courses. I documented everything professionally. And I decided that if I ever became a leader, I'd never treat people that way. Silence. Then Tom nodded. That's exactly the kind of integrity we need. 2 weeks later, I got the call. I was restocking shelves when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stepped into the back hallway. Mary Collins? Yes? This is Diane from corporate. We'd like to offer you the assistant district manager trainee position. My breath caught. The training period is 8 months. You'll rotate through multiple stores, shadow current managers, and complete leadership modules. If you pass, you'll be promoted to full district manager. Yes. Yes, I accept. She laughed. You might want to hear the salary first. She told me. It was nearly double what I made now. I almost cried right there in the hallway. That night, I bought a bottle of cheap champagne and sat alone in my apartment. I poured a glass, looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, and whispered, "Let's begin." My reflection smiled back. For the first time in months, I recognized the person staring back at me. Strong. Determined. Free. Chad had tried to break me. Instead, he'd forged me into someone who couldn't be broken. I gave my 2 weeks' notice the next morning. I didn't make a big announcement. Just a polite email to Chad and HR. Chad barely looked up when I handed him my printed resignation letter. Corporate internship, he read aloud, smirking. Good luck with that. He leaned back in his chair. You'll be back in a month, begging for your old job. They eat people like you alive up there. I smiled. A real smile. Maybe. But not how you think. He frowned, confused. I didn't explain. I just walked away. My last 2 weeks were strange. Some coworkers congratulated me quietly. Jessica hugged me and whispered, "Get him." Others, the ones who'd laughed at Chad's jokes, avoided me. On my final day, I cleaned out my locker. No cake. No party. Just a silent exit. As I walked out, Chad called after me. Hey, Mary? I turned. He was smirking. When you wash out, don't expect us to take you back. I nodded. I won't need you to. And I left West and Willow for what I thought was the last time. I was wrong. I'd be back. But not as Mary Collins, the replaceable assistant supervisor. As District Manager Collins. The training program was brutal. For 8 months, I worked harder than I'd ever worked in my life. I rotated through 6 different stores across the region. Each one had different problems, different teams, different challenges. I shadowed district managers during performance reviews, budget meetings, and crisis situations. I watched how real leaders handled conflict, with respect, not cruelty. I learned corporate policy inside and out. Labor laws. Inventory systems. Financial forecasting. Some weeks I worked 60 hours. I studied at night, practiced presentations on weekends. But I also saw something else. I saw what power could do to small people with big egos. I met managers like Chad. Petty tyrants who ruled through fear. I saw the damage they caused, high turnover, low morale, broken teams. And I met managers like Patricia. Leaders who inspired loyalty because they gave respect first. I knew which kind I wanted to be. During my final evaluation, Tom Riley asked me a direct question. What kind of leader do you want to be, Mary? I didn't hesitate. The kind who remembers what it felt like to be powerless. So I never make anyone else feel that way. He smiled. That's the right answer. 8 months later, I passed every evaluation. My metrics were strong. My feedback from teams was overwhelmingly positive. My understanding of corporate policy was flawless. Tom called me into his office on a Friday afternoon. Congratulations, Mary. You've earned the promotion. District manager. Full title. Full authority. We're opening a new district in the Midwest region, he continued. You'll oversee 6 stores. We're assigning you to territories that need strong leadership. He slid a folder across his desk. I opened it. My heart stopped. There, in the list of stores, was my old location. West and Willow, Chicago Northwest. Store manager, Chad Morrison. Tom watched my reaction carefully. Is that going to be a problem? I closed the folder slowly. No, I said. Not for me. He nodded. Good. Because his performance reviews have been declining. We need someone who knows that store to assess whether he's the right fit going forward. I felt something cold and satisfying settle in my chest. Not revenge. Justice. When do I start? I asked. Monday. I smiled. Perfect. That weekend, I prepared. Not with anger. With professionalism. I reviewed Chad's file. His numbers. His staff turnover rates. His budget reports. Everything I needed was already there. He'd dug his own grave. I was just going to hand him the shovel. Walking into West and Willow on Monday morning felt surreal. The same automatic doors. The same fluorescent lights. The same faint smell of cleaning solution and cardboard. But I was different. I wore a corporate blazer. Carried a tablet. Walked with the confidence I'd earned. The morning crew was setting up displays. A few glanced at me curiously. They didn't recognize me at first. Then I saw Chad. He stood near the register, clipboard in hand, barking instructions at a new employee. He turned, and our eyes met. Confusion flickered across his face. Then recognition. Then something close to panic. Mary? I smiled. Professional. Calm. Good morning, Chad. He blinked. What are you doing here? I held up my badge. District Manager Collins. I'll be conducting performance reviews today. The color drained from his face. Behind him, Jessica's mouth dropped open. Then she smiled. A huge, unrestrained smile. Other employees exchanged glances. Whispers spread. Chad stammered, Nobody told me. I'm telling you now, I said evenly. We'll start with a store walkthrough. Then I'll need to see your budget reports, schedule documentation, and inventory logs. He swallowed hard. Of course. Right away. I'd waited 8 months for this moment. And it was even better than I'd imagined. The audit didn't take long. I didn't have to dig. His violations were right there on the surface. Falsified timesheets, he'd been clocking in early and leaving late on paper while actually arriving late and leaving early. Misused budget funds, personal expenses charged to the store account, just like I'd documented months ago. Staff retention numbers, 30% turnover in 6 months, the highest in the region. When I asked him to explain, his voice cracked. We've been short-staffed. I've been doing my best. It's not easy managing this location. I nodded, taking notes. I understand. That's why this review is important. It's an opportunity for growth. He flinched at my words. The same words he'd used on me countless times. I asked him about specific schedule changes. Why certain employees lost hours while others gained them. He stammered through explanations that made no sense. I asked about the expense reports. He claimed they were mistakes and miscommunications. I stayed calm. Professional. Let him dig himself deeper with every answer. By the end of the audit, he was sweating. So what happens now? He asked quietly. I'll submit my report to corporate. They'll review it and make a determination. He nodded, pale. I stood. Thank you for your cooperation, Chad. As I walked away, I heard him exhale shakily. Before I left, I called a brief team meeting. The staff gathered nervously. They'd seen audits before. They knew what they could mean. I stood in front of them, the same spot where Chad used to lecture us. I want to talk about leadership, I began. Chad stood in the back, arms crossed, jaw tight. Real leadership isn't about control. It's about respect. It's about making people feel valued, not replaceable. I saw Jessica nodding. A good leader builds people up, even when giving feedback. A good leader follows the same rules they enforce. A good leader remembers that every person on their team matters. My eyes met Chad's. That's the kind of environment I expect in every store I oversee. Professionalism. Fairness. Integrity. I paused. If anyone has concerns about how this store has been managed, my door is always open. You can reach me directly. I handed out cards with my corporate email and phone number. Several employees took them immediately. Chad's face darkened. After the meeting, Jessica approached me quietly. Thank you, she whispered. I squeezed her hand. You deserved better. You all did. She nodded, tears in her eyes. That moment meant more than any revenge ever could. I submitted my report that evening. 23 pages. Detailed. Factual. Damning. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't editorialize. I simply told the truth. Chad Morrison had violated company policy repeatedly. He'd created a hostile work environment. His leadership had directly caused high turnover and declining performance metrics. I recommended immediate disciplinary action and mandatory retraining. Corporate's response was swift. The next morning, Tom Riley called Chad in for a meeting. A formal disciplinary hearing at headquarters. I wasn't required to attend, but Tom asked if I wanted to. It's your call, Mary. You earned it. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to watch Chad face consequences. But another part, the part that had grown during those 8 months, knew I didn't need to. I'll pass, I told Tom. My report speaks for itself. He respected that. The hearing lasted 3 hours. When Chad emerged, his badge was gone. He was suspended pending further investigation. 2 weeks unpaid. Final warning. If he slipped up again, he was done. He walked past me in the hallway without a word. For a moment, just a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered the schedule board. The laughter. The humiliation. And I let him walk away without another word. The corporation offered me the permanent district manager position. Full title. Full salary. 6 stores under my supervision. Including the one where I'd once been told I was replaceable. I accepted immediately. On my first official day, I returned to West and Willow. Chad was back from suspension, quieter now. Subdued. He avoided eye contact when I walked through. I made changes quickly. I reassigned shifts fairly based on seniority and availability, not favoritism. I reviewed the budget and cut unnecessary expenses. I implemented an open-door policy for employee concerns. Within 2 weeks, the atmosphere shifted. People smiled again. They helped each other. They stopped looking over their shoulders. Jessica got promoted to assistant manager. She'd earned it. And every time I walked past that old corkboard, now holding a schedule that was fair and transparent, I smiled. Not because of what Chad had lost, but because of what I'd gained. Dignity. Authority. The power to make things better. I'd learned his lesson. Just not the one he intended. I learned that the best revenge isn't tearing someone down. It's rising so far above them that their cruelty can't reach you anymore. A month later, I ran into someone unexpected at a regional manager conference. My old coworker Brittany. The one Chad had favored. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. No more bright smiles. Mary? She approached hesitantly. Is it true? Are you really a district manager now? I nodded. I am. She looked down. I heard what happened. With Chad. Silence. Then she said quietly, he wasn't nice to me either. After you left. He turned on me too. My chest tightened. I'm sorry. She shook her head. Don't be. You tried to warn us. We didn't listen. We laughed. I didn't know what to say. I quit 2 weeks ago, she continued. I couldn't take it anymore. The way he talked to people. The games. She met my eyes. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For not standing up for you. For laughing when I should have helped. It took courage to say that. Thank you, I said. That means something. She smiled weakly. Did you hear? Chad got demoted. He's back on the floor. Part-time. I had heard. The corporate investigation found more violations after I left. He was working retail again. No authority. No power. Just a regular employee. Good, I said. Maybe he's learning how it feels. 3 months into my new role, I received an email from Tom Riley. Impressive work, Mary. Your district has the highest improvement metrics in the region. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I smiled at my computer screen. What I was doing was simple, treating people like they mattered. I visited each store weekly. I learned names. I asked about people's lives. I listened to concerns and acted on them. I didn't rule through fear. I led through respect. And it worked. Staff turnover dropped 40% in my district. Customer satisfaction scores climbed. Sales increased. Corporate noticed. I was invited to speak at the annual management conference. Me, the woman who'd had her hours cut to 12 just a year ago. I stood on that stage in front of 200 managers and told my story. Not for revenge. Not to embarrass Chad. But to remind everyone that leadership is a privilege, not a weapon. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. Afterward, several managers approached me. They'd worked under people like Chad. They understood. Thank you, one woman said, tears in her eyes. I needed to hear that. I realized then that my story wasn't just mine. It belonged to everyone who'd ever been told they were replaceable. And survived anyway. 6 months after becoming district manager, I was offered another promotion. Regional manager. Oversight of 30 stores across 3 states. Tom Riley delivered the news personally. You've earned this, Mary. You're exactly the kind of leader we need. I accepted. My territory expanded. My responsibilities grew. My impact multiplied. But I never forgot where I started. I made it a point to visit struggling stores personally. To meet with employees who felt overlooked. To identify managers who led through fear and retrain them, or remove them. I became the leader I'd needed when I was drowning under Chad's cruelty. And every time I promoted someone who'd been underestimated, every time I corrected a manager who abused their power, every time I made a workplace better, I remembered. I remembered sitting in my car, crying after a humiliating shift. I remembered the scheduled board that cut my hours to 12. I remembered feeling powerless. And I remembered deciding to change. Not just my circumstances. But myself. That was the real lesson. Not that bad people get punished, but that strong people rise. 2 years after everything began, I received a LinkedIn message from Chad. My first instinct was to delete it, but curiosity won. Mary, I wanted to reach out. I know I don't deserve your time, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. You were right about everything. I was a terrible manager. I let power go to my head. I hurt people who didn't deserve it. I'm working on being better. I'm back in school, taking leadership courses. Trying to understand what I did wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that you taught me something important. And I'm grateful. Even if it took losing everything to learn it. I read it 3 times. Part of me wanted to ignore it. He didn't deserve my acknowledgement. But another part, the part that had grown and healed, knew that holding on to anger would only hurt me. I typed a brief response. I appreciate you reaching out. I hope you find the growth you're looking for. Best of luck. Short. Professional. Final. I closed the message and moved on. Because that's what I'd learned. You don't win by staying bitter. You win by becoming better. And I had. Today, I lead a region of over 30 stores. I mentor young managers. I speak at conferences. I build systems that protect employees from the kind of abuse I once endured. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that schedule board. About Chad's smirk. About the laughter. But I don't feel anger anymore. I feel gratitude. Because that moment, as painful as it was, changed my life. It forced me to stop waiting for someone else to value me. It pushed me to value myself. Chad thought he was teaching me a lesson about being replaceable. Instead, he taught me that I was irreplaceable. Not because of a title or a salary. But because I decided I was. I didn't ruin his life. I didn't need to. He fell into the hole he dug for others. All I did was climb out of mine. And build a ladder for everyone else still trapped at the bottom. That's the real lesson he taught me. Not how to get revenge. But how to rise. And once you learn that lesson, really learn it, no one can ever cut your hours, your worth, or your power again. Because you finally understand. You were never replaceable. You were just waiting for the right moment to become unforgettable.